Hello, this is Donna Lewis of the Clark County Park District again. And today we have a visitor, that's Loki. Today I'm going to read another excerpt, another part of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. So today we're going to read about a weird dude in this book. Advice from a Caterpillar. And Loki is going to join us, aren't you, Loki? All right, so I'm reading this from home today. So, advice from a caterpillar. In a little while, Alice saw the white rabbit approach again, looking around anxiously and muttering to itself. When the rabbit noticed Alice, it called out to her in an angry tone, "Why, Marianne, what are you doing out here? Run home this moment and fetch me a pair of gloves and a fan. Quick now!" Alice was so surprised that she ran off at once without trying to explain the mistake it had made. She came upon a neat little house with a bright brass plate that said W. Rabbit. "How strange it seems," Alice said to herself, "to be doing errands for a rabbit." She found her way upstairs and had just picked up the fan and a pair of gloves when her eye fell upon a little bottle that stood near the looking-glass. There was no label, but she uncorked it anyway and put it to her lips. Well, that was a silly thing to do when you don't know what it is. Before she had drunk half the bottle, she found her head pressing against the ceiling. She hastily put it down, but she went on growing, so she put one arm out of the window and one foot up the chimney. Luckily for Alice, the little magic bottle had now had its full effect and she grew no larger, but it was still very uncomfortable. So there she is. Let's see, with her, can we see that? Okay. With her hand sticking out the window. Oh, I see her eye up there, up within the other window. That's crazy. You should never drink something that you don't know when you don't know what's in it. But this is a silly book. After a few minutes, she heard a voice outside. "Marianne, Marianne, fetch me my gloves this moment." The rabbit came up to the door and tried to open it, but Alice's elbow was pressed hard against it. Alice heard it say, "What's that in the window?" "It's an arm, Your Honor," answered another voice. "Well, it's got no business there. Make it go away," the rabbit said. Soon a shower of little pebbles came rattling in at the window. Alice noticed with some surprise that the pebbles were all turning into little cakes as they lay on the floor, and a bright idea came into her head. "If I eat one of these cakes, it's sure to make me smaller." She swallowed one of the cakes and was delighted to find that she began shrinking. As soon as she was small enough to get through the door, she ran out of the house as fast as she could, and soon found herself in a thick wood. A little sharp bark just over her head made her look up in a great hurry. An enormous puppy was looking down at her and stretching out one paw to touch her. "Poor little thing," said Alice in a coaxing tone. She picked up a stick and held it out to the puppy. The puppy jumped into the air with a yelp of delight and rushed at the stick. Then Alice dodged behind a great thistle to keep herself from being run over. The moment she appeared on the other side, the puppy made another rush at the stick and tumbled head over heels in its hurry to get a hold of it. Then Alice, thinking it was very similar to playing a game with a large cart horse, and expecting every moment to be trampled under its feet, ran around the thistle again. The puppy began a series of short charges at the stick, barking hoarsely all the while, till at last it sat down a good way off, panting with its tongue hanging out of its mouth and its great eyes half shut. This seemed to Alice like a good opportunity for making her escape, so she ran until the puppy's bark sounded quite faint in the distance. "I should have liked teaching it tricks, if only it had been the right size to do it," said Alice, as she leaned against a buttercup to rest herself and fanned herself with one of the leaves. "Let me see. I suppose I ought to eat or drink something or other to change size. But what?" So there is the puppy. So in the cartoon stories and stuff, we usually don't see the puppy and some of these other animals that we've seen. So there's a cute little puppy, but it's not very little to her, is it? I just knocked Loki in the head with my book. Okay. There was a large mushroom growing near her, about the same height as herself. She stretched herself up on tiptoe to peep over the edge of the mushroom, and her eyes immediately met those of a large blue caterpillar that was sitting on the top with his arm folded, quietly smoking a pipe. The caterpillar addressed her in a languid, sleepy voice. "Who are you?" the caterpillar said. Now this is one strange caterpillar. So a caterpillar in real life turns into a moth or a butterfly, right? I don't know about the caterpillar in this story. Alice replied rather shyly, I hardly know, sir. I know who I was when I got up this morning, but I think I must have been changed several times since then. What do you mean by that? Said the caterpillar. Explain yourself. Alice felt a little irritated at the caterpillar. I thought you ought to tell me who you are first. Why? Said the caterpillar. Since Alice could not think of any good reason, and the caterpillar seemed to be in a very unpleasant state of mind, she turned away. Come back, the caterpillar called after her. I've something important to say. Alice turned and came back again. For some minutes it puffed away without speaking, but at last it unfolded its arms, took the pipe out of its mouth again, and said, So you think you're changed, do you? I'm afraid I am, sir, said Alice. I don't keep the same size for 10 minutes together. What size do you want to be? The caterpillar asked. Well, I should like to be a little larger, said Alice. 3 inches is such a wretched height to be. Whoops. I have fighting dogs. Loki, Shiloh. Sorry about that. That's what happens when you're doing things at home. In a minute or two, the caterpillar took the pipe out of its mouth, yawned once or twice, and shook itself. Then it got down off the mushroom and crawled away, remarking, One side will make you grow taller, and the other side will make you grow shorter. Alice looked thoughtfully at the mushroom for a minute, and then broke off a bit of both sides of the mushroom, holding one in each hand. And now which is which, she said to herself, and nibbled a little of the right hand bit to try the effect. The next moment she was shrinking rapidly, so she ate some of the other bit at once, and quickly grew. So everything she eats in this story makes her bigger or smaller, right? So somebody really had an imagination when they wrote this book. All she could see when she looked down was an immense length of neck, which seemed to rise like a stalk out of a sea of green leaves that lay far below her. Suddenly a large pigeon flew into her face and began beating her violently with its wings. Serpent! Screamed the pigeon. I'm not a serpent, said Alice indignantly. Leave me alone. I'm a... Well, what are you? Said the pigeon. I can see you're trying to invent something. I'm a little girl, said Alice rather doubtfully, as she remembered the number of changes she had gone through that day. Loki. Sorry, we have a wrestling match going on at my house. Loki and Shiloh. No. Okay. It's interesting doing work at home. A likely story indeed, said the pigeon in a tone of the deepest contempt. I've seen a good many little girls in my time, but never one with such a neck as that. No, you're a serpent, and there's no use denying it. Well, be off then. Let's see if the pillow worked. Okay, they're done. Alice crouched down among the trees as well as she could and set to work nibbling first at one piece of mushroom and then at the other until she had succeeded in bringing herself down to her usual height. How puzzling all those changes are. I'm never sure what I'm going to be from one minute to another. Okay, so that was a crazy chapter. This is a crazy book. So, Advice from a Caterpillar. That was what that chapter was called. So this came from a little girl herself with quite an imagination, I would say. And then again, like I said, when I first started the story, a reverend translated her version of the story and then wrote it into this book. So it's pretty crazy. A long time ago. When was this written? I'm going to look again. 1865. So, back then they didn't have TVs, radios, iPhones, obviously, okay, movies. So you have to really use your imagination and write your own stories, right? Or read them in a book. So this is kind of like some kind of crazy movie we'd see today. Instead, they wrote a crazy kind of book. So that is the end of that chapter. I think we're at chapter 3. Next week, I really have to wear this hat because it's the Mad Hatter Tea Party. So tune in next week for the Mad Hatter Tea Party. Again, this is Donna Lewis. Have a great day today. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.